Hello everyone. The topic which we are going to discuss today is thalassemia. As we know, thalassemia is the most common hemoglobinopathy in hemolytic anemia. So before going to that, first we should know what we mean by hemolytic anemia. Hemolytic anemia means there has to be hemolysis, RBC hemolysis, and there has to be bone marrow compensation. Both have to be there to term this as hemolytic anemia. Both RBC destruction and bone marrow compensation has to be there to say the hemolytic anemia. In hemolytic anemia, there are various causes like your congenital causes, like your acquired causes. In congenital causes, there occurs membrane defect, enzyme defect, and hemoglobinopathies. And in hemoglobinopathy, most common is your sickle cell anemia and thalassemia. Among these two, thalassemia is the most common thing, most common disorder. And coming to thalassemia proper, thalassemia is that word that has derived from a Greek word, combination number two, that is thalassa and emia. Thalassa means the sea, that is the Mediterranean Sea, and emia means related to blood. This is one blood related condition that is most common, that was most common in Mediterranean area. So the term has derived from that thalassemia, that is Mediterranean area, Mediterranean Sea, and related to blood. This is, as we know, in our RBC, the major hemoglobin is HbA. HbA is formed of two alpha genes and two beta genes. Alpha gene is determined, is encoded by our chromosome number 16, and beta gene in chromosome number 11. So other hemoglobin, one is adult hemoglobin, another is HbF, that is consists of alpha 2 and gamma 2, and another is HbA2, that is formed of alpha 2 and delta 2. And coming to the basic difference, what do we mean by thalassemia and what do we mean by sickle cell anemia? In thalassemia, it is because of the quantitative defect in the formation of a globin gene, and sickle cell anemia, that is because of the qualitative defect, because of qualitative defect in the globin gene. Globin gene, the sixth position of beta globin, that is valine, that is the valine, easy to remember. Valine replaces glutamic acid in the sixth position of beta gene, that leads to sickle cell. But the quantitative defect in beta gene, that will lead to your thalassemia. Then coming to the classification, thalassemia is broadly divided into alpha thalassemia and beta thalassemia. When there is defective in formation of the alpha gene, then it is called alpha thalassemia. When defective in the formation of the beta globin, then that leads to beta thalassemia. Then, as we know, alpha gene is represented by four genes. So alpha gene is represented by four genes. Suppose one gene is defective, then that will lead to silent carrier of alpha thalassemia. If two genes are defective, then that will lead to alpha thalassemia minor. If three genes are defective alpha gene, then that will lead to HbH disease because of the formation of the beta 4. And if if four genes are deleted, that will lead to hydrospitalis or HB part because of the gamma 4 complex. As we know, there is no alpha, means other gene has to compensate, that is more formation of beta or gamma, which are completely unstable, which leads to RBC destruction in the fetal life itself. In the fetal life itself, that will lead to severe anemia, that can lead to CCF, hemolytic hepatosplenomegaly. So a fetus can born with hydrospitalis, massive anasarca, CCF, and hepatosplenomegaly, and that fetus will die within a very few days. That is alpha thalassemia. They are incompatible with life. But coming to beta thalassemia, that is because of the decrease in production, quantitative defect, decreased production of the beta gene. One is beta 0. Beta 0 means complete absence of the beta gene synthesis. Another is beta plus, that is some decrease in synthesis of beta genes. In beta thalassemia, that is broadly divided into beta thalassemia major, intermediate, and trait. Major, when there is a complete absence of beta gene synthesis with a recurrent history of blood transfusion, that will lead to beta thalassemia major. Clinically, if history of blood transfusion is less but lab wise compatible with thalassemia, that we can stamp this as thalassemia intermedia, and the minor form is thalassemia trait, which almost behaves like your iron deficiency anemia. Then coming to beta thalassemia, beta 0, beta 1, beta plus, that we have discussed. There won't be any symptom till 3 to 6 months of age because of the predominance of the fetal hemoglobin. As we know, up to 3 to 6 months fetal hemoglobin do predominance. After that, there will be one switchover from fetal hemoglobin to adult hemoglobin. Adult hemoglobin is consists of alpha to beta 2. So if there is no formation of beta, then definitely alpha will have to combine with your gamma. That will lead to HbF, more formation of HbF, and this HbF, that is oxygen affinity is more, so there is definitely imbalance between the RBC membrane, that will lead to destruction. That is the cause of the hemolysis in thalassemia. That will lead to pallor. That pallor can cause CCF in thalassemia, and because of the two, as we have discussed, in thalassemia along with in hemolytic anemia along with RBC destruction, there has to be compensatory bone marrow formation. So both medullary and extramedullary erythropoiesis do occur in thalassemia. So features of a medullary erythropoiesis, what we can get is frontal buzzing, is maxillary prominence, is the typical hemolytic phases and chipmunk phases that we can get in thalassemia major. But features of extramedullary erythropoiesis, what we can get in thalassemia is hepatosplenomegaly. So it is commonly asked in exam, the hepatosplenomegaly is because of medullary or extramedullary erythropoiesis. It is because of extramedullary erythropoiesis. But this maxillary prominence is because of your medullary hyperplasia or medullary erythropoiesis. Another important thing is icterus is uncommon, icterus is less and uncommon in thalassemia, but it would be a major important finding in sickle cell, because in sickle cell RBC, matured RBCs are getting lysed, but in thalassemia, before the formation of hemoglobin in our RBC series, that is in the intermediate normoblast, our hemoglobin do appears. So before that RBC is getting lysed. So if there is no hemoglobin, there is no bilirubin, and so there is absence of jaundice or icterus that we can get in thalassemia. And these things we must remember. It will help us to differentiate a case of thalassemia from sickle cell anemia. Then coming to the DD, as we have discussed, sickle cell anemia is the most common differential diagnosis that we do come across in our day-to-day practice. In sickle cell, what we can get, it is because of the qualitative defect. It do present commonly as hand-foot syndrome or dactylitis during the early childhood. Then features some various types of crisis, that is aplastic crisis, sequestration crisis, your painful crisis, that we can get commonly in sickle cell disease. And the history of recurrent blood transfusion, what we usually get in thalassemia, that may not be there in sickle cell anemia. So that is the most important clue finding that will help us to differentiate sickle cell anemia from thalassemia. And another important thing is icterus is common. Icterus is deep icterus we can get in sickle cell, but not in thalassemia. That we have to remember. Another is other conditions of anemia where we can get history of recurrent blood transfusion, like your pure red cell aplasia. That is one important DD that we do come across. But we know pure red cell aplasia, or otherwise known as Diamond Blackman syndrome, the usual manifestation is early neonatal period because of the destruction of because of the formation of RBC series is depleted. There is no formation of RBC, so there we can get history of blood transfusion in early childhood, in early neonatal period. There won't be any hepatosplenomegaly. The red count will be less in pure red cell aplasia. And features of some congenital malformation, like your biped thumb, like your thinner hypoplasia, that we can get in pure red cell aplasia. These are the two things, along with other other diseases, that we should exclude before diagnosing a case of thalassemia. Then coming to the lab finding, as we can get microcytic hyperchromic anemia. Red count will be more, but it is less than 88% because of the ineffective erythropoiesis. That we have to remember. In other hemolytic anemia, we can get red count more than 10, 12, 20%, but in thalassemia, red count, though it is more, but it is less than 8%. Maximum would be 8%. Peripheral smear, we can get nucleated RBC, we can get basophilin stripling, And HPLC is the investigation of choice where we can get absence of HbA, that is adult hemoglobin, and more formation of more formation of HbF, that with the clinical feature of a recurrent blood transfusion, it is a cleans to the diagnosis of thalassemia major. If similar picture with less history of blood transfusion, then it is thalassemia intermedia. And if you are getting HbA2 more than 3.5%, it is mostly a case of thalassemia trait that is usually confuses with iron deficiency anemia. Then coming to the complications, because of anemia we can get CCF. Then because of iron overload, as you know, in thalassemia there is a requirement of repeated blood transfusion. So repeated blood transfusion can lead to your iron overload. Iron overload that can cause your pancreatitis, that can lead to diabetes mellitus, your cirrhosis of liver, your cardiac iron overload that can lead to cardiomyopathy, that can lead to arrhythmia and cardiac failure, that can lead to hypogonadism, hypopituitarism, all hypothyroidism, everything we can get as the complication of thalassemia. Then coming to treatment, treatment is only repeated blood transfusion is the major modes of treatment. That is a double-edged sword that can lead to even iron overload. If you transfuse, then the child is going to survive by getting repeated blood transfusion, which can lead to iron overload. Then another definite treatment is stem cell transplantation. That is a remote possibility. It's not that common, that some criteria has to be fulfilled before going for stem cell transplantation. Then next is iron chelation. As you know, because of repeated blood transfusion, there is a more requirement, more iron deposition. So we have to chelate the iron by the available iron chelators. There are major three names. One is deferoxirax, one is deferexamine, and another is deferriprone. Deferexamine, it is, just to remember, subcutaneous form. The dose is 40 to 60 mg per kg per day, has to be given subcutaneously. Compliance will be less because it has to be given 5 to 7 days a week, and it has to be given over a period of 8 to 12 hours per day. So that's why compliance is a bit less. Then deferriprone, it is the oral molecule. It is better than your deferexamine. It can chelate your cardiac iron. The dose is 75 mg per kg per day. And the most dangerous side effect with deferriprone is agranulocytosis and arthritis. These are the two things we have to remember. Then the third and the recent one is deferoxirax, which is the safest molecule. This is the oral form. It has to be given at a dose of 30 mg per kg per day. Side effects bit less. It can excrete your both intracellular and extracellular forms of iron through bile and stool. That we have to remember. Next is, what are the indications of splenectomy? As we know, splenectomy can be a modality of treatment, but we cannot. The indication are there has to be features of hypersplenism, and there has to be the transfusion index has to be more than 200 to 250 ml per kg per year. Transfusion, if transfusion is more than that, then and with features of hypersplenism, we can go for a splenectomy. But thing is that before we give splenectomy, we have to vaccinate the baby with all the vaccines available against the capsulated organisms. That we have to remember. Then the last is coming to the quiz part. The quiz, 2 questions. One is, what is the other name of thalassemia? That is Cooley's anemia. The second is, what is the best chelator for cardiac iron overload? That is deferriprone. These are the 2 things we can remember. So, thank you.